The great European explorations between the 15th and 18th centuries mark a pivotal era in world history. This extensive movement, driven by economic, religious, and political ambitions, transformed global dynamics, ushering in an age of colonization, trade, and intense cultural exchange. At the end of the Middle Ages, Europe was seeking new economic and territorial opportunities. Trade with Asia, particularly in spices and silk, largely depended on land routes controlled by the Ottoman Empire. Faced with exorbitant costs and commercial uncertainties, Europeans sought maritime alternatives. Simultaneously, the Renaissance had spurred scientific and technological advancements. The invention of the compass, improvements in maritime charts, and the development of ships like the caravel made open-sea voyages safer and more efficient. Finally, the Reconquista in Spain and Portugal had bolstered the crusading spirit and missionary fervor. Converting non-Christian populations was a priority for European monarchs, who viewed explorations as an opportunity to expand Christian influence globally. The motivations behind European explorations were diverse. European kingdoms sought direct access to valuable resources such as gold, silver, spices, and other exotic goods. These explorations promised to enrich monarchs and strengthen their power in relation to rival nations. The spread of Christianity, particularly in response to the rise of Islam, was a priority. Missionaries often accompanied explorers to convert the populations they encountered. The race for territorial expansion was a matter of prestige and international supremacy. Each kingdom sought to claim new lands and assert its authority there. Explorers themselves were driven by a thirst for adventure, the promise of glory, and the prospect of personal wealth. The European explorations aimed to achieve the discovery of new trade routes, particularly to Asia and India, the establishment of colonies to ensure a steady flow of resources to the metropolitan centers, the assertion of cultural and religious hegemony over newly discovered territories. Christopher Columbus, born in 1451 in Genoa, Italy, is one of the most iconic figures of the great European explorations. A passionate and visionary sailor, he firmly believed in the possibility of reaching Asia by sailing west, an audacious idea that challenged the prevailing beliefs of his time. During this period, trade routes to Asia were controlled by powers such as the Ottoman Empire, and opening a new route to the east had become a priority for European kingdoms. After facing rejection from Portugal and other monarchies, Columbus secured support from the Spanish sovereigns Ferdinand of Aragon and Isabella of Castile, who financed his venture. This backing was motivated not only by economic interests, but also by a desire to compete with Portugal and expand Spanish influence. On August 3, 1492, Columbus set sail from the port of Palos with 3 ships, the Santa Maria, the Pinta, and the Nina. After a transatlantic journey marked by tensions among the crew, he reached the Bahamas on October 12, 1492, believing he had arrived at the eastern islands of Asia. During this expedition, Columbus explored several Caribbean islands, including Cuba and Hispaniola, present-day Haiti, and the Dominican Republic. Encounters with indigenous peoples, particularly the Taino, were initially friendly and hospitable. However, these interactions quickly devolved into exploitation and violence. Columbus returned to Spain in March 1493 to great acclaim. He brought back fascinating accounts, samples of plants and gold, and indigenous captives. Sparking immense interest in these newly discovered lands, Columbus undertook 3 additional expeditions between 1493 and 1504. Second voyage, 1493 to 1496, returning with a much larger fleet of 17 ships and over 1,000 men. Columbus aimed to colonize the territories he had discovered. The first colony, La Isabela, was established on Hispaniola, but was plagued by conflicts with indigenous peoples and harsh living conditions. Third voyage, 1498 to 1500. Columbus explored the coast of present-day South America, discovering the Orinoco Delta in Venezuela. He began to suspect he had reached a previously unknown continent, but remained convinced it was part of Asia. Fourth voyage, 1502 to 1504. On his final expedition, Columbus searched in vain for a passage to India. He explored the coast of Central America, but faced mounting challenges, including storms and crew revolts. Columbus's voyages marked the beginning of European colonization in the New World, leading to the devastation of indigenous populations. European-introduced diseases, coupled with exploitation and violence, caused a drastic decline in their numbers. Columbus's discoveries triggered a rush by European powers to colonize the Americas. The influx of gold and silver from the New World transformed European economies and intensified rivalries among kingdoms. While Columbus is celebrated for initiating transatlantic exploration, his legacy is deeply controversial. He is criticized for his role in the brutality against indigenous peoples and the beginnings of the transatlantic slave trade. Christopher Columbus played a central role in the history of European exploration. His voyages not only expanded the geographical knowledge of his time, but also inaugurated a new era of colonization and global transformations. However, these achievements must be assessed alongside their profound human and environmental consequences. In 1519, Hernán Cortés, an ambitious Spanish conquistador, led an expedition that reshaped the history of Central America. Accompanied by approximately 600 men, he landed on the shores of Mexico with the aim of conquering gold-rich territories. Cortés quickly formed alliances with indigenous groups hostile to the Aztecs, who dominated the region through force and heavy tributes. With the help of Malinche, a native interpreter who played a crucial role, he managed to establish diplomatic relations while preparing for military conquest. In 1521, following a prolonged siege and fierce resistance, Tenochtitlan, the Aztec capital, was destroyed. This victory enabled the Spaniards to establish New Spain, a territory abundant in natural resources. The fall of the Aztec Empire exemplifies the Spanish strategy of exploiting internal divisions among indigenous peoples to assert dominance. In 1532, inspired by Cortés' success, Francisco Pizarro set out to conquer the Inca Empire located in the Andes. With fewer than 200 men, he faced one of South America's most powerful empires. Pizarro took advantage of a civil war between Atahualpa and Huáscar, the two contenders for the Inca throne. At Cajamarca, he captured Atahualpa in an ambush. Despite Atahualpa offering a significant ransom in gold and silver for his release, he was executed by the Spaniards. In 1533, Pizarro captured Cuzco, the Inca capital, and established the colony of Peru. The conquest of the Inca Empire allowed Spain to control the region's vast mineral wealth, including Potosí, one of the world's largest silver mines. In 1513, Vasco Núñez de Balboa crossed the Isthmus of Panama, becoming the first European to see the Pacific Ocean from the New World. This event was pivotal for Spanish ambitions as it opened new prospects for navigation and trade. Balboa named it the South Sea, believing it led directly to the riches of Asia. His discovery reinforced Spain's determination to establish trade routes across the Pacific. Alvar Núñez Cabeza de Vaca was among the first Europeans to explore the interior of North America. In 1528, after being shipwrecked on the Florida coast, he embarked on a perilous journey through what are now the southern United States and northern Mexico, surviving with the aid of indigenous peoples. His account, La Relation, provides a unique perspective on Native American life before the large-scale arrival of European settlers. Though his expedition did not result in conquest, it significantly enriched geographical and ethnographic knowledge. The encomienda system was implemented by the Spaniards to exploit the human and natural resources of conquered lands. It granted Spanish colonists control over lands and their indigenous inhabitants, who were expected to work in exchange for protection and Christianization. In practice, the system led to the massive exploitation of local populations, who were subjected to forced labor under harsh conditions, particularly in mines and plantations. Spanish conquest was accompanied by intense missionary efforts. Catholic priests, primarily Franciscans and Dominicans, played a central role in converting indigenous peoples. Indigenous temples were often destroyed or repurposed as churches. While this mission facilitated some cultural exchange, it also led to the eradication of many local beliefs and traditions, contributing to the cultural assimilation of the colonized populations. Spanish explorers were among the most influential figures of the Age of Exploration. Through their pursuit of wealth and dominance, they not only reshaped the Americas but also strengthened Spain's global power. However, their conquest brought devastating consequences for indigenous civilizations, marked by destruction, exploitation, and the erosion of cultural identities. In 1534, Jacques Cartier, a mariner and explorer commissioned by King Francis I, launched France's first expedition to North America. His primary objectives were to find a route to Asia and to discover exploitable riches. During his first expedition, Cartier explored the Gulf of St. Lawrence, establishing contact with indigenous peoples, particularly the Iroquoians of Stadacone. He claimed these lands for France and named the region Canada, derived from the Iroquoian word Canada, meaning village or settlement. In 1535 to 1536, Cartier ascended the St. Lawrence River to Hochelaga, modern-day Montreal, impressed by the apparent richness of the lands. However, harsh winters, diseases like scurvy, and tensions with indigenous peoples complicated his expeditions. Despite his geographical discoveries, Cartier found neither gold nor a passage to Asia. Samuel de Champlain, often called the father of New France, played a pivotal role in establishing France's first colonies in North America. Between 1603 and 1616, he extensively explored the St. Lawrence River and the Great Lakes regions, creating detailed maps essential for colonization. In 1608, Champlain founded Quebec, a strategic trading post that became the heart of New France. Understanding the importance of alliances, Champlain cultivated relationships with indigenous groups, especially the Hurons. These alliances were critical for the colony's survival and for countering the Iroquois, who allied with the English and Dutch. Champlain embarked on several expeditions westward to expand French influence and search for trade routes. He reached the Great Lakes and established connections with local tribes, paving the way for future French explorers and missionaries. The fur trade, particularly in beaver pelts, became a cornerstone of the French economy in America. French explorers and traders developed an extensive network connecting indigenous peoples to European markets. This economic activity led to fierce rivalries with the English and Dutch, who also sought control over the lucrative fur trade. These tensions often escalated into armed conflicts, intensified by opposing indigenous alliances. French explorers were in constant competition with the English for control of North American territories. While the French expanded along the St. Lawrence River and the Great Lakes, the English established colonies along the eastern seaboard. This rivalry culminated in major conflicts, such as the 7 Years' War, 1756 to 1763, which ultimately determined the fate of New France in favor of the British. Despite the fall of New France in 1763, French culture left a lasting mark on North America. Quebec, for instance, remains a bastion of French language and culture. French explorers, through their maps, accounts, and alliances with indigenous peoples, significantly enriched European understanding of the Americas. Figures like René Robert Cavelier de La Salle, who reached the mouth of the Mississippi, opened new avenues for colonization and commerce. French explorers played a crucial role in the discovery and colonization of North America. Their approach, focused on alliances with indigenous peoples and trade, set their presence apart from other European powers. However, rivalry with the English and the economic limitations of their colony hindered their expansion, leaving a complex but enduring legacy. John Cabot Giovanni Caboto, an Italian-born explorer in the service of England, was one of the pioneering figures in British exploration. In 1497, under King Henry VII's commission, he embarked on a voyage to discover a sea route to Asia. Cabot reached the coast of North America, likely Newfoundland or Labrador. Although he did not find the riches or the passage to Asia he sought, his discovery allowed England to claim these territories, marking the first steps toward a British presence in America. Cabot's expeditions opened the door for future English explorations. However, England remained relatively inactive in the New World during the 16th century, preoccupied with internal conflicts and rivalries with other European powers, particularly Spain. Sir Walter Raleigh, an English courtier and explorer, played a key role in early attempts to establish English colonies in America. In 1584, he received a charter from Queen Elizabeth I to establish a settlement in North America. Raleigh sponsored several expeditions to explore the coast of present-day North Carolina, naming the region Virginia in honor of the Virgin Queen. In 1585, a colony was established on Roanoke Island. However, conflicts with indigenous peoples, food shortages, and a lack of logistical support led to the colony's failure. By 1590, the settlers of Roanoke had mysteriously vanished, a historical enigma known as the Lost Colony. In 1607, the British founded Jamestown, their first permanent colony in America, in present-day Virginia. This expedition was led by the Virginia Company, a private enterprise seeking wealth and trade opportunities. The early years were fraught with challenges, including famine, disease, and conflicts with indigenous peoples. Despite these difficulties, figures like John Smith and the introduction of tobacco cultivation helped Jamestown thrive, laying the foundation for British expansion in North America. Martin Frobisher was one of the first British explorers to search for the fabled Northwest Passage, a sea route connecting Europe to Asia via the Arctic. Between 1576 and 1578, he led 3 expeditions, exploring Greenland's coast and the bay now bearing his name. While Frobisher failed to find the passage, he returned with samples he believed to contain gold, fueling hopes of Arctic wealth despite the harsh conditions. In 1610, Henry Hudson, serving England, explored the Arctic and discovered the bay that now bears his name. Like Frobisher, his goal was to locate the Northwest Passage. Though the mission failed, Hudson's exploration underscored British interest in northern territories. Tragically, Hudson's crew, frustrated by the extreme conditions, mutinied and abandoned him, his son, and a few loyalists in a small boat, sealing their fates. In the 17th century, the British established numerous colonies along North America's eastern coast, forming what became the 13 colonies. These settlements attracted colonists seeking religious freedom, agricultural opportunities, and economic prospects. British colonies were distinguished by their political and social organization. Unlike Spanish or French models, British settlers often enjoyed a degree of local autonomy, fostering a participatory governance culture. The British presence in North America quickly clashed with that of the French. The 7 Years' War, 1756 to 1763, was a turning point, with Britain achieving a decisive victory and annexing most French territories in North America through the Treaty of Paris. British explorers laid the groundwork for a colonial empire that became one of history's most influential. The 13 colonies, particularly, became economic powerhouses, thriving on agriculture and transatlantic trade. Marked by pragmatic and commercial strategies, British exploration positioned England as a dominant global power, capable of rivaling Spain, France, and the Netherlands on the world stage. British explorers, often overshadowed by their Spanish and French counterparts, played a pivotal role in shaping the modern world. Their explorations, colonization efforts, and maritime dominance profoundly influenced North America and laid the groundwork for the Industrial Revolution and Britain's 19th century global hegemony. The age of European exploration Led by iconic figures like Christopher Columbus, Hernan Cortés, Jacques Cartier, and John Cabot, marked a watershed in world history. Motivated by the pursuit of trade routes, wealth, and territories, these expeditions transformed interactions between Europe and the rest of the world. A reimagined world. Spanish explorers. Through military dominance and evangelization, the Spanish reshaped complex civilizations like the Aztecs and Incas while exploiting their colonies' resources. French explorers. Adopting a trade and alliance strategy, the French left a lasting cultural and linguistic legacy, particularly in North America, despite their limitations due to rivalries. British explorers. With pragmatic explorations and structured colonies, the British laid the foundation for a global empire, surpassing their rivals in the global competition.